Well, I'm back in Hawaii for work this time, but since this is where it all started, I wanted to share with you a really unique story of how I'm building a travel and adventure legacy with my kids. Maybe it'll give you some ideas on how you can do that. And at the end, quick side note story, I'll share with you how my kids ended up becoming musicians and getting a gig playing at this hotel down here. All right, quick look at the beautiful mountains, and we'll get into the story. When I first started traveling with my kids, I was short on both time and money. So, in keeping with being intentional, this needed to meet a specific objective, a specific parenting objective. So, I think that we should start there, looking at why do we want to travel? What is this going to do for us or for our family? For me, it was going to show my kids that they are a priority in my life, that I am willing to put aside other things that I'm doing and disrupt my own life, because let's face it, traveling is pretty disruptive, right? To leave your home and go somewhere else, that I was willing to do that to go spend time with them. And the way I decided to do that was when they were little, I thought about how cool would it be if when they turned 12, I let them choose where they want to go to. And so my wife and I, when we were first married, we lived in Hawaii for a year, first year of our marriage. So my kids, they grew up hearing stories and seeing pictures of Hawaii. So my oldest daughter, of course, when it was her turn to go, she chose to go to Hawaii. So we went from Boise to Seattle to Hawaii. Now, full disclosure here, I do work for the airlines, so I'm very fortunate to get very deeply discounted travel opportunities. With that said, though, it's only standby, so I can only travel when there are open seats available. And sometimes it has bit us, so I have been coming back from places and had to pay full fare, last minute tickets to get home. So it kind of balances out. Okay, back to the story. Well, I didn't have a lot of resources to make this a big extravagant trip like most people want to do when they go visit Hawaii. But this is where that mindset shift needed to happen. And this has forever changed how I see travel, especially traveling with kids, where I just said, well, let's just go. Let's just make it happen. So we went from Boise to Seattle to Honolulu, and we were only on the ground for 36 hours, and we had a great time. Yeah, I wish it could have been longer, but that's all the time I had. And so when I told people about that, they were like, wow, that doesn't seem like it was worth it. You know, I probably wouldn't have gone or whatever. But what was the alternative? That's the only other alternative, is just to not go. So we had a great time. It was a very memorable experience. And again, I could have just not gone, but how would that have been better? And you can look at it as like, well, that's a waste of money. But if you're spending money on your priorities and you're accomplishing your objectives, then don't look at what the cost is, because those are your priorities, those are your objectives. What else should you be spending money on? So that's how I look at it. The other nice thing about taking a short trip like this is it didn't cost as much money and it didn't take very much time to plan anything out. So, because this worked so good, I decided to do something similar with my son. He's not super particular about where he wanted to go, but he likes animals, so we decided to go to the San Diego Zoo, and that was just a day trip. Literally got on the plane early in the morning and made it back later that evening. But for my other son, after him, he was into those shows with the alligator hunters where they go out into the swamps and they hunt for alligators. So we took a trip to Florida. We went down to Orlando and we got to take a swamp boat ride, which is a really, really cool experience. I really recommend you do that if you ever get the chance. We got to see baby alligators, and I think it was definitely more fun than any ride you could have done at Disney World. And these are supposed to be one-on-one trips, but my oldest daughter loves to travel so much that she talked her way into this trip by offering to be the photographer. Then our next child, to turn 12, has pretty exquisite taste, so she chose to go to Paris. So we went all the way from Honolulu to Paris. Again, that was only for 2 nights also, but it leads into the other objective that I want to accomplish when it comes to traveling with my kids. And that is, I want my kids to become adaptable, resilient adults. I also want them to be interesting as well. But going back to resiliency, traveling the way that I travel, I don't plan it out that much. So they have to be able to adapt and be resilient. For example, on this trip, we couldn't get a flight direct to Paris, so we went to London. And we had about a 10 or 11 hour layover in London. So we took the train to downtown London and we walked around and explored. We put in a lot of miles walking around, looking at all the things there were to see, but it was a great experience for her to learn to just go with things and adapt, and she really enjoyed it. But this next story of our European trip really breaks down why I think we should change the whole way we think about traveling, especially with kids. So we wanted to get to Europe from Hawaii, and we weren't exactly sure how we were going to get there. So we got on a red-eye flight out of Hawaii to Los Angeles, because that's a big international hub. We got to LAX at about 7 in the morning, and we took a look at what the options were as far as open seats that were going to Europe, anywhere in Europe. We didn't know because we hadn't planned anything yet. Right? Turned out about 2 o'clock, there was going to be a direct flight leaving from LAX to Heathrow, London, and we had some time to kill. So we got a hotel room and got a little bit of rest and came back to the airport 2 o'clock, got on a direct flight to London. We didn't know where we were staying yet, so on the taxi out, got on my phone and found a hotel near the airport. We got to Heathrow and then went to our hotel. And then I started looking for accommodations for that night. And since we were going to be leaving out of Gatwick, I found a nice little Airbnb cottage. It was an actual bed and breakfast. And then we took a nap and went downtown and explored everything in London, spent the whole day down there. At night, we went to this neat little cottage house where the attic had been converted into living quarters. It was pretty neat, a really good experience. The next day, we went to church, met this really nice family who invited us over for lunch. We had a great time visiting with them, and then they took us to the airport. So less than a day and a half in England, we were on a plane and we were off to Italy. We landed in Rome late in the evening, and this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. So we got some good food at the airport. Then we got on the train station and went to the main station right in the middle of downtown Rome. We walked with our carry-on suitcases through the cobblestone streets for about 3/4 of a mile to our hotel, or to what I thought was our hotel. Now, we tried to go check in, and I was all mixed up because of the days and the time changes and all that stuff. I didn't realize that we weren't booked for that night. We were booked for the following 2 nights. And as luck would have it, they didn't have anything available that night. So we just had to hit the street, walking around looking for another hotel. After about 45 minutes to an hour, we came to a hotel that had an opening for that night. So I showed my kids that, hey, it's okay, we'll figure it out. I didn't get worked up or anything about it. We found a place to stay and it worked out. Even though I couldn't change the reservation on the other hotel, so that other night we weren't going to be staying there. So I just lost the $200 on that or whatever. Again, an opportunity to show my kids, hey, it's not a big deal, right? Just adapt and go with it. We had an amazing time in Rome, beautiful city. I love it there. I hope you get a chance to see that if you haven't seen it someday. So we stayed 2 nights in Rome, and then we were on a plane to Madrid. We went to Spain, had a great time in Spain. Beautiful sights there. Also Madrid, beautiful city, loved it there. We stayed 2 nights, long enough to have the experience, and even had time for my son to get a haircut. I was back at work a few weeks later, and I was sharing this experience with one of my coworkers, and he just confirmed by what he said that I did the right thing. He said, wow, a trip like that would have taken me months to plan out. And that's the whole point. Sometimes you don't need to plan anything. We planned very little. We just went for it. And I taught my kids how to adapt. And I accomplished the objectives that I wanted to accomplish with my kids. And I think a trip like that is going to be just as memorable, if not more memorable, than a long drawn out vacation where everything was planned. Since then, we went to Tokyo a couple of different times and to Sydney, Australia. And each of those times it was just for 2 nights. Again, got to have the experience. We've done some other traveling since then, some more normal style traveling, so I could bring my wife along on that. But the point is, I just want you to be aware of alternatives. If you don't have a lot of money and if you don't have a lot of time, it's still worth going, because again, the alternative is just to not go. and your kids are still going to get the experience. You're still going to get to see those really neat things that you want to be able to see, and you're going to broaden the way they think about things. You're just going to open up their mind by giving them these experiences. So I hope this gives you something to think about, and if you've done this type of traveling, I'd really like to hear about your experience, so please leave a comment. Thanks for watching. Oh, I almost forgot. So here's the story of how my kids got to end up playing a gig at that hotel. When we moved to Oahu in 2019, they were starting to show some promise as musicians. And we went downtown in Waikiki and saw these musicians playing on the street, and people were giving them tips. It was a really neat thing. And so I have a tendency to push my kids into doing things that I know are good for them, whether they want to or not. I have some other videos on my channel. And I told them, okay, you just need to go down there and play some songs on the street just one time. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. Well, they ended up liking it because they made a lot of money doing it. And after a couple years, the general manager of this hotel was walking by, saw them playing, and invited them to come play at her hotel. It was a paid gig. They played there for a month. But funny thing is, they actually made more money playing on the street, so they didn't want to renew the agreement they had with the hotel, and they just went back to playing on the street. So that's the story. Thanks for watching.